how do we really truly define who someone is? Is it where they come from, maybe their family background, or is it more about what they do and, well, how they act?
That's a huge question.
Mm.
And it's definitely not just a modern dilemma, is it?
Not at all. It feels like a debate that's just echoed through human history for, gosh, millennia.
It really has. And that brings us perfectly to today's topic.
Right. Today, we're taking a deep dive into a really fascinating Buddhist scripture, the Vāseṭṭhasuttaṃ. A sutta being basically a discourse or teaching.
Exactly. And our mission really is to unpack this foundational dialogue. It's from over 2,000 years ago, and it just profoundly challenges the conventional wisdom around identity, status.
And what it actually means to be, say, well-born or noble.
Precisely. We want to explore the sources and see what this ancient exchange can still tell us today about, well, universal human values.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. Where does this all take place?
It starts in this serene setting, the Ichanagala Forest Grove. That's where Bhagavan, the Buddha, is residing at the time.
And it sounds idyllic, but it wasn't just some isolated spot, was it?
No, not at all. The sources tell us it was actually near where many very esteemed Brahmin scholars were living. People like Kalki, Taruka, big names.
Okay, so that context is important. It paints a picture of a community really rooted in, let's say, traditional understandings of status and social hierarchy.
Absolutely. Deeply invested. And it's right in the middle of this context that we meet our two main characters, Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvāja.
Two young Brahmins, and what are they up to?
Well, they're walking probably through the forest, and they're deep in this fundamental philosophical debate. They're asking, how does one become a Brahmin?
The core question. And I gather they didn't exactly see eye to eye on it?
Not even close. Their views were dramatically different. You had Bhāradvāja firmly planted in tradition.
Okay, what was his take?
For him, it was purely about birth. Simple as that. He argued a Brahmin is defined by being born from both mother and father, pure in lineage up to the 7th generation of grandfathers. Totally unblemished by birth.
So bloodline is everything. Ancestry. That's the traditional stand.
Exactly. But then you have Vasa, and he pushes back with a pretty powerful counter-argument.
Which was?
For Vasa, it wasn't about ancestry at all. It was about conduct. He argued a Brahmin is defined by being endowed with virtue and good practices.
Ah, so it's about what you do, how you behave, your ethics, not where you happen to come from.
Precisely. Character over lineage.
So you've got these two bright, probably quite passionate young thinkers, right? But they're completely stuck at an impasse.
Totally deadlocked. They couldn't convince each other.
Which I suppose leads them to seek out someone wiser when you hit a wall like that.
Exactly. You need an authority, someone renowned for wisdom, and who better than the Buddha?
His reputation at the time was, well, immense, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely glowing. The texts describe him with all these incredible titles. Bhagava, the Blessed One, Arahant, meaning fully enlightened, Sammasambuddha.
Teacher of gods and humans. I mean, the list goes on. He sounds like the obvious choice.
The ultimate authority for settling such a profound question.
So Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvāja, they go and approach him. How does that interaction go?
They approach respectfully, exchange pleasantries, the proper greetings. Then Vāseṭṭha, who seems maybe a bit more forward or articulate in this moment, presents their dilemma.
Does he just lay it out plainly?
He actually does it in verse, which is quite interesting. He emphasizes their background, calling themselves 3 knowledge experts.
What does that signify? Their traditional learning?
Yes, their deep learning in the Vedas, the traditional Brahminical knowledge. They're essentially saying, look, we're learned guys. According to our tradition, we've studied the sacred texts, but we're stuck on this fundamental point.
Please, can you clarify? Is it birth or is it action?
That's the core question they pose. Is this Jepi, birth, or karma, action?
And the Buddha agrees to explain. How does he begin? His approach is fascinating, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
He doesn't just jump to the answer. He starts by agreeing to explain the classification of beings. But he begins with the natural world, with nature itself.
Okay, why start there?
Well, he uses these illustrations. He points to things like grasses and trees. He says they have distinct birth-based signs, ligarimaya.
Meaning you can tell what they are just by looking,
Yeah.
like specific leaves, flowers, fruits.
Exactly. An oak looks like an oak, a maple like a maple. Their identity, their species, is evident from birth-based characteristics.
And he extends this.
Yes, he goes on. Insects, moths, ants, termites, each distinct. Quadrupeds, small and large animals, reptiles, like snakes defined by their long backs or lack of legs, fish in the water, birds in the sky.
So in all these cases, nature provides clear, inherent markers based on birth or species.
Right. Each group has its own ligajatima, its own distinct birth-based sign or characteristic.
But then, and this feels like the crucial turn, he pivots to humans.
This is the absolute core of the argument. He emphasizes that unlike all these other life forms among humans, well, there is no distinct birth-based sign like these others.
Wow. So none of the obvious physical differences count in the same way.
He's very explicit. He lists things, not by hair, nor head, nor ears, nor eyes, nor mouth, nor nose, nor lips, nor brows. He goes through the whole body: neck, shoulders, belly, back, genitals, hands, feet, fingers, nails, skin color, even voice.
So all the things we might think differentiate people, he says none of these are true birth-based signs in the same way a leaf shape defines a tree.
Exactly. None of these define some inherent fundamental difference in kind or status from birth.
The implication is huge. What does he conclude from that?
He states it plainly. This differentiation among humans is merely a conventional designation. Samanya hesa lokasmi. It's just a label, a concept we've created.
That's incredibly profound. It completely undermines the idea that social divisions are somehow natural or biologically determined.
It really does. It pulls the rug out from under the birth-based caste ideology.
Okay, so if birth doesn't define true status, and physical traits are just conventional, what about what people do? Their jobs, their roles in society?
Ah, good question. He addresses that directly, too. He starts listing conventional occupations.
Like what?
Like someone who lives by tending cattle. Well, you call them a farmer kasako, but he says that doesn't make them a Brahmin.
Okay, so profession isn't it either?
Nope. He continues. One who lives by crafts is an artisan, sipiko, not a Brahmin. One who lives by trade is a merchant, vaso, not a Brahmin.
Servant, thief, soldier.
Same logic. A servant, pesiko, isn't a Brahmin. A thief, koro, isn't a Brahmin. A soldier, yurujivo, isn't a Brahmin. Even a priest performing rituals, a yajako, isn't a Brahmin by that act alone. Or a ruler, a king, Raja, still not automatically a Brahmin in his sense.
So he systematically dismantles all the common ways people might define status, birth, appearance, occupation.
Exactly. He clears the ground completely, and then he provides his own transformative definition.
This is what Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvāja came for. What is the Buddha's definition?
He starts by saying, I do not call one a Brahmin just because of birth from a mother's womb. Such a person, he says, might just be a bhavadi.
A bhavadi. What's that?
It's a term for someone who might be addressed respectfully, like saying sir or master, often associated with those who have wealth or status markers. But it implies it's superficial. He said such a person is burdened by possessions.
Ah, okay. So not the real thing. Who is the real Brahmin then?
One who is free of possessions, grasping nothing, akinyakana anardena, that I call a Brahmin. It starts with non-attachment.
That's a radical shift. It's purely about inner qualities and actions, isn't it?
Entirely.
Yeah.
He then lists these qualities. A true Brahmin is one who has cut all fetters, who is fearless unbound.
So liberated from mental chains.
Yes, and one who endures abuse, beating, bondage without malice. Someone whose strength is the strength of patience.
Wow, that's powerful. What else?
One who is not angry, virtuous, pure, tamed danta, living their last life. Someone who isn't defiled by sensual pleasures like water on a lotus leaf.
That beautiful image of the water rolling off the lotus leaf, untouched by the mud.
Exactly. It signifies purity amidst the world. He also mentions having deep wisdom, gambirapanya, skilled in the path and non-path, attained the highest good.
So wisdom and discernment are key.
Crucial. And compassion, too. One who has laid down the rod, meaning violence for all beings, whether feeble or strong, who does not kill or cause to kill.
Universal non-harming.
Absolutely. And someone whose lust, hatred, conceit, and hypocrisy have fallen away like a mustard seed from a needle's point.
That's a vivid image for something completely shed, completely gone.
Isn't it? He also emphasizes speech. One who speaks words that are truthful, gentle, enlightening, offending none.
And ultimately, this path leads towards
liberation. He describes the true Brahmin as one who has overcome the difficult swamp of delusion, crossed over, deep pradyato, meditative, without craving, without doubt. And the culmination, attain nibbana through non-clinging, anupadaya parinibhuta.
Nibbana, the ultimate goal, freedom from suffering.
That's the pinnacle. He also mentions knowing past lives, seeing heavens and hells, having attained the destruction of birth. These are signs of full awakening.
So looking back at the original debate, the Buddha connects this attainment directly back to the question of birth versus action.
He does. He essentially says that calling someone a Brahmin based on birth or lineage is just a worldly convention, a label conceptualized by those who do not understand. It's based on ignorance of the true nature of things.
And then comes that really punchy, definitive statement.
The absolute knockout line. Not by birth, Mananaki, does one become an outcast. Not by birth does one become a Brahmin. By action, one becomes an outcast. By action, one becomes a Brahmin.
Action karma determines who you truly are, not the circumstances of your birth.
Precisely. He reinforces this. By action, the world proceeds. By action, humanity proceeds. Beings are bound by action, like the linchpin of a moving chariot. Action is what drives everything.
And this true Brahminhood, achieved through action, involves...
He summarizes it as achieved through austerity, tapasa, holy life, brahmacharya, self-restraint, sayamana, and taming dhamana. This is the path. The true Brahmin is perfected in conduct and wisdom, peaceful, whose rebirth is extinguished.
What an answer. How did Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvāja react to all this? They must have been blown away.
The text says they were profoundly moved. They immediately exclaimed, "Excellent, Gautama, excellent," like a light being switched on in the dark.
It wasn't just an intellectual aha, it sounds like it hit them deeply.
Absolutely. It resonated deeply. And their reaction wasn't just verbal admiration.
No. What did they do?
They immediately made a commitment. They declared, "We go to Master Gautama for refuge, and to the Dhamma, the teaching, and to the Sangha community." They became lay followers right then and there.
Wow, so the teaching had an immediate life-changing impact on them.
A complete transformation of their understanding, leading to a commitment. It's a powerful testament to the clarity and force of the Buddha's explanation.
So when we wrap this all up, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into the Vāseṭṭhasuttaṃ?
Well, it just fundamentally flips the script on status and nobility, doesn't it? It shifts the entire definition away from the accident of birth.
Towards the conscious, deliberate cultivation of virtue, wisdom, and ethical action.
Exactly. It's this incredibly powerful message that true human value isn't something you inherit. It's something you build through how you live, through understanding, through your karma.
It feels incredibly relevant even now.
Definitely. Which maybe leads to a final thought for you listening.
Go on.
In our own time, today, with all our complex ways of judging people, success, influence, background, what criteria do we tend to use, maybe implicitly, to define someone's worth?
That's a challenging question, and maybe even more importantly.
Yes.
What criteria do we choose to live by ourselves? What defines our worth in our own eyes?
Something to really consider, isn't it, as you navigate your own path?